Introduction to Human Development. Under this, we are going to deal with the lesson Emotional Development. The objective of this lesson is to understand the concept of emotional development and to understand the emotional development taking place in the child and adolescence. What is emotional development? Emotional development is the child's ability to understand feelings of others and control their own feelings and behavior and get along with their peers. In order for the children to attain the basic skills that they need, such as cooperation, following directions, demonstrating self-control, paying attention, they must have the emotional skills. Feeling of trust, confidence, pride, friendship, affection and humor are all parts of the child's emotional development. A child's positive relation with trusting and caring adults is the key to successful emotional development. Emotions are a part of complex set of interconnected feelings and thoughts and behavior. Emotions are the feelings, both physiological and psychological, that the people have in response to the events that are personally relevant to their needs and goals. The word emotion is used to imply a system of feelings instead of a single feeling. It is used to describe certain behaviors like fear, anger, joy, disgust and affection. Emotion is related in some ways to motivation as an energizer of behavior, and emotions can be classified into fear, anger, affection and others. Emotions are universally seen in all cultures and they seem to have an adaptive function. There are individual differences in emotional functioning. Now let us see the individual differences in responding to emotions. Emotionally, children are seen to be different from each other even in early infancy. Some infants are fussy and dependent, while others may be cheerful and easy. Some are fearful, anxious, and others may actively seek novelty and adventure. Some are quiet and shy, and some are sociable and outgoing. Emotional development involves acquisition of set of skills like identifying and understanding one's own feelings, accurately read and comprehend the emotional states in others, managing strong emotions and their expressions in a constructive manner, regulating one's own behavior, developing empathy for others, and establishing and sustaining relationships. Each of these skills develop on their own timetable and builds upon one another. The foundation for emotional development begins in infancy itself. For example, a 2-month-old infant is soothed and smiles at the voices of a parent. When the caregiver talks to the child, he or she will fixate on the face of the loved ones. Being able to read your child's cues and attend to them from the day they are born starts the creation of emotional development in the child, in creating a source of trust and loving relationship with the child. Why is emotional development important? A child's emotional development is as important as their cognitive or physical development. It is important to know that children are not born with emotional skills. It is the role of the parents or the caregivers or the teachers of the children to teach and foster these emotional abilities or skills. The modern concept of origin and development of emotions were proposed by Bridge. Bridge observed infants and young children extensively and studied the development of emotions. The basic emotions are present within the first few weeks of life. These are happiness, interest, surprise, fear, sadness, and disgust. Complex emotions emerge after having social experiences with others. The more complex emotions of shame, guilt, envy and pride emerge later when the children have social experiences of observing these emotions in other children. At the time of 3 months, the child exhibits excitement and becomes differentiated into distress and delight. 6 months, the distress becomes more specific and 3 emotions like fear, anger and disgust, that means unpleasantness, develops. By the age of 1 year, the delight gives rise to affection and elation. Elation means excitement. By the age of 15 months, jealousy starts developing. As the child's age increases, the linguistic response increases and motor response decreases, especially in fear and anger provoking situations. Characteristics of child's emotions. Let us see how the emotions of the children are. The emotions are intense. Young children respond with equal intensity to an ordinary as well as a serious situation. Emotions are transitory. Young children rapidly shift from one emotional state to another, like laughter to tears, anger to smiles, jealousy to affection, because of intellectual immaturity, the short attention span, and to clear the pent-up emotions. The next characteristic is emotions appear frequently. Children frequently display their emotions. As they grow old, they know that punishment follows emotional outbursts and they need to express negative emotions in a more acceptable way. Emotions change in strength. Some emotions are very strong at one point and some are weak. This is due to variation in the intellectual development, in the strength of drives, interest and values of the child. The child's emotions response reflect the individuality. There are individual differences in emotional expression. The child responds to different situations in different ways based upon the individuality of the child. Emotions can be detected by the behavioral symptoms. Children show emotions indirectly by crying, nail biting, thumb sucking, daydreaming, being restless, nervous symptoms and with speech difficulty. These are the characteristics of child's emotions. At birth, the first emotion that is evident in the newborn is general and undifferentiated type of response, that is excitement. This behavior changes to some specific type of emotional response. The next emotion to be detected after excitement is distress. This is observed by the end of first month. By the end of second month, the feelings of delight can be noted. By 3 to 6 months, the anger, disgust and fear are reflected. The two fears that seem at birth are sudden and withdrawal of support of the body, and reaction to the loud voice or harsh noises. All other fears are learned fears. By 6 months of age, smile appears, but they use the smile indiscriminately regardless of the situation. By the end of this 6 months, it rises its frequency and it differs in social context and care. 7 to 8 months, the infant distress in response to being left by mother appears. This is what we call as separation anxiety. That means separating from familiar persons produces more anxiety than from unfamiliar persons. 9 to 10 months. Many babies in this age group show pronounced fear of unfamiliar people. This is called as stranger anxiety. Usually this starts at 6 months of age and peaks at 8 to 10 months of age and generally disappears by 15 months. This is not the universal characteristics of infancy. By the age group of 1 to 2 years, infants are capable of discerning emotional meaning underlying the adult's facial and voice expressions, and they incorporate meaning to their interpretation of adults' behavior. This is known as social referencing. That is, observing emotional cues of others and using such cues to interpret possible event for oneself. For example, if mother shows negative emotions like worriness, the infant may withdraw. On the other hand, if she shows the positive emotions, the infant is more likely to approach the situation with confidence. Social referencing illustrates how members of a cultured group build a shared view of reality during the infancy. As the children grow older, they acquire a broad range of emotions. They become increasingly aware of their own and others' feelings. A good example for this is if one child cries, the other child also cries. It is called as emotional contagion. That is the tendency of the infants to cry spontaneously when they hear the other infant crying. This happens during the first to 2 years of age. By the time the child reaches 2 to 3 years of age, the children can talk about their own emotional states and others' experience, and they can recognize the emotions are connected by the people's desire. This is the self-conscious emotions like the guilt, shame, embarrassment and pride. Preschool age. The children of this age group show evidence of self-conscious emotions that reflect the awareness of social standards and other people's concern about adherence to these standards. Middle childhood. The children of this age group realize that their thoughts and interpretations determine how they feel about particular situation, and they can also understand that the other people have different interpretation as a result of different feelings. Elementary school. The children begin to realize that emotional expression do not always reflect the people's true feelings. Beginning of adolescence. The children appreciate that the people can have ambivalent emotions towards the people and events. The period of adolescence brings new anxieties and pressures. Adolescents tend to be more emotionally volatile than the young children. They are more often report the feeling of loneliness, embarrassment, anxiety, extreme mood swings. The hormonal changes that accompany the puberty and interpersonal problems with the peer group may account for these types of changes. So, this is how the emotional development takes place from birth to adolescence. Love. Among the positive integrative emotions, love and compassion are most important. Love has very special significance for adolescents. He must satisfactorily sort out for the different kinds of love he feels for the family, friends and different mankind in general. Love may be active, promote another's welfare, or it may be passive, simply accepting love behavior, or it may be mutual. Love is a compassion which involves with others who are in distressful experiences like the sorrow, shame, fear or despair. The compassionate person is not only sensitive to how another person feels but also cares why that person is feeling so. The adolescent's acquisition of the capacity for compassion depends on his experiences and adjustments. Exposure to experiences is necessary to permit him an intelligent comprehension of the situations to which the different persons have different reactions. Shyness. Shyness is more manifestation of feelings of inferiority than an emotional state. The shy person feels self-conscious when he is in group and withdraws himself. He has no confidence in his own social qualifications and fears exposing himself to ridicule. There are several reasons for manifestation of shyness. Because it is a socially oriented age, the adolescent desperately wants to prove himself and becomes more sensitive to failure. And another reason is overprotective parents. The problem of shyness can be solved best within the context of social situations. The shy adolescent should have simply ample opportunities to participate in group work which can divert his attention from himself, and to develop special talents or interests or skills which build his feeling of ego and boost his self-confidence. The next emotional state is feeling of guilt. Guilt is feeling of wrongdoing when a person sees his own actions as having violated what is right, ethical or moral in a certain situation. He feels guilty and sense of guilt is painful. Adolescents often experience the feelings of guilt in areas of conduct within the social expectations. Fears. Fears, worry, anxiety are feelings which arises as a result of one's relation to other people or imagined happenings in the environment. Fear is specific. It impels actions to escape an immediately threatening situation, and whereas anxiety is less threatening but makes the individual to feel help and lacks the capacity to cope up with the threat. The next emotional state of adolescence is worry. While fear subsides when the fear stimulus is removed, worry involves the repeated mental rehearsal of the fear-producing situations. Worry is non-adjustive and involves continuously increasing tension, which further reduces the individual's capacity for action. Worry involves fear, anxiety and tension in a complex state of mind. Adolescents are susceptible to many worries over the choices of vocation, the school or college, work, relationship with other people. Research studies reveal that adolescents' worry is centered around their weight, their postures, their studies, examination grades, expressing self, and opportunities and friendships. The suggestions may help the teenager worrier to overcome his problem. They are allotting some time to consider his problem, to confide in someone he trusts and talk to it, to obtain full and authentic information concerning his difficulties, to seek professional help if he is not able to overcome worry. Anxiety. The next emotional state of adolescence is anxiety, which cannot be explained as clearly as worry or fear because it is a blend of many emotions. Anxiety is more generalized. The adolescent expresses many situations which are likely to serve as reservoirs of anxiety. Anxiety arises chiefly from strong impulses that are blocked by the social taboos. Examinations and the need to meet social obligations also causes anxiety. Adolescents whose early home environment was not favorable suffer from certain amounts of basic anxiety. Anxieties, like worries, vary with individual, with the age and with circumstances. There are no specific formulae for treating anxiety. The adolescent has to evolve his own technique to overcome anxiety, like prolonged therapy involving re-evaluating one's own resources and threats offered by the external world. The next emotional state is jealousy. Jealousy is a special form of resentment. It arises in an adolescent when he is threatened by actual or possessed loss of affection or prestige by a rival. Jealousy may be a result of varying combinations of threatened love, fear, anger, hate, failure, rejection and shame. The stimulus to jealousy is always social in origin. Adolescents tend to feel jealousy with respect to their achievements in various areas like the school, the athletics and in peer relations. In order to overcome jealousy, the adolescents need help to understand that their emotion is natural outcome of their own feelings of inadequacy based on real or imagined deficiency. They should try to overcome this by themselves or with the help of others in approved ways. Depression. The emotional state of depression lacks excited drives which characterize anger, fear and anxiety. Essentially, depression is self-punishing. It's a harmful method of adjustment representing passive acceptance or resentment instead of constructive solution. Feeling of guilt forms a basis for depression. It is also likely to result from the failure to achieve their self-ideal. Solutions to depression requires discovering and dealing with specific causes. If the individual is not able to overcome on his own, may have to take expert or professional help. The depressed must decide upon action instead of passive resignation. He should analyze his problem and take concrete measures to correct them. Some of the suggestions to overcome depression are to seek positive emotional experiences which will throw out the depressive thoughts, to do things for others which will divert his inner thoughts to external activities, to restructure his environment and goals, thus permitting the building of self-esteem through success. Another emotional state of adolescence is hostility. It is an act of showing enmity. Unlike depression, which is passive in nature, hostility is active and seeks an object for attack. Anger is underlying stimulus to hostility and is usually directed towards a person or persons or none in particular. A common cause of hostility is frustration. Persons in authority are more likely to arouse hostility in adolescence as they hinder their independence. The adolescents needs plenty of hand-driving sports and creative activities to release this tension arising out of the goal-directed activity. His achievement of autonomy should be encouraged in proportion to his efforts. Feeling of inferiority. Inferiority feelings involves the emotions of depression and shame rising from unfavorable self-evaluation and are based on the deficiencies either imagined or real. A person may have inferiority feeling in areas even when he really excels, simply because he falls below his own standards. These feelings are damaging and manifest themselves in many unfortunate symptoms. The person who feels inferior is hypersensitive to criticism. He feels others are actively seeking his downfall. He has the tendency to shyness, seclusion and daydreaming. Heightened emotionally. It means increased frequency and intensity of emotional experiences in relation to what is normal. It is readily recognized by the behavior that characteristically accompanies it. It is unpleasant one marked by moods and rages which come and go with greater and lesser violence. If it is pleasant one, the adolescent will be walking on clouds and singing, offering to help people, saying pleasant things to everyone. There is always some nervous tension accompanying the heightened emotionally. So, these are some of the emotional states which are common to adolescence. As we have already understood that emotions are feelings both physiologically and psychological that the people have in response to events that are personally relevant to their needs and goals. This is an important in guiding behavior. Emotional state energizes the thinking and acting in ways that are often adaptive to the circumstances. Some common emotional states during adolescence are happiness, anger, fear, anxiety, etc. These are the means to vent excess energy. Instead, help individuals to redirect their actions and relationships. Emotions are universally seen in all cultures and they seem to have adaptive function. Individual differences could be the result of both biological, that is temperament, gender specific hormones, and the environment like socialization by parents, peers and culture. Emotions develop in several ways. For example, in children and adolescents can increasingly regulate their emotion in ways that are both societally acceptable and personally effective. Dealing with emotions of the students is an important part of teaching. Parents and teachers need to be alert towards the adolescent emotional development. Emotional maturity. Emotional maturity is characterized by readaptation of solutions to meet the changing demands and establishment of relationship between self and environment. It permits a manner of self-actualization taking into account social welfare and external realities. Emotions appear in a pattern varying with situations. Developmental changes in emotional functioning. As the children grow older, they acquire a broad range of emotions. They become increasingly aware of their own and others' feelings. Their emotional development is characterized by these trends. The children become increasingly sophisticated interpreters of emotions. The children expand their repertoire of basic emotion to include self-conscious emotions. The children and adolescents gradually learn to regulate their own emotions. The adolescence brings new anxieties and pressures. From the early days of infancy, the children respond to emotional state of others. This is known as emotional contagion. For example, as we have already seen, if one baby or infant starts crying, the other baby also cries. During the first 2 years of their life, the children are able to monitor others' emotions, particularly their parents or the trust caregivers. This is known as social referencing. With age, the children become able to read the people's facial expressions. Later on, they become more thoughtful about emotions. They talk about emotional status that they and others experience and realize that emotions are connected to people's desires. By middle childhood, they realize that their thoughts and interpretation determine how they feel about a particular situation and that other people have different interpretations or different feelings. By upper elementary grades, the children begin to realize that emotional expressions do not always reflect the people's true feelings. By the end of middle childhood or at the beginning of adolescence, they appreciate that the people have ambivalent feelings towards the people and events. So, today we have seen what is emotional development. We also understood that the children are not born with emotions. They are learned through the adults or the people in their immediate environment. We also learned that emotional development is as important as cognitive and physical development. Next, we moved on to see how the emotional development takes place from birth to adolescence. We also understood the characteristics of the emotions, like emotions are intense, emotions are changes frequently in children. Then we have understood how emotions are taking place in adolescence. We also understood what are the common emotional states of the adolescents and how they can overcome the negative emotions. Hope you have enjoyed this lesson and understood it. Thank you.